皆さんこんにちは。大阪市長の横山です。ハック大阪にお越しの皆さん、今日はありがとうございます。今日はですね、これからトークセッションが行われると思いますが、その前にちょっとビデオでご案内したいと思います。で、私は本当は今日伺いたかったんですけども、公務の関係で伺えないことを本当にお詫び申し上げます。そしてですね、今日はメドテックアクチュエーターのお二人に来ていただきました。バズさんとですね、ビシャルさんにお二人にお越しいただきまして、これからですね、ユニコーン企業から学ぶ海外市場での成長のコツということで、お話を伺っていきたいと思います。この後トークセッションでは、シンクロン社とメドテックアクチュエーターのお二人の方で対談されるということでございます。どうぞ皆さん最後までお楽しみにしていただきたいと思います。では早速ですが、本日はメドテックアクチュエーター、メルボルンで設立されたアクセラレーターですが、大阪で新たな拠点を開発いただきました当社の共同設立者でありますバズ・パーマーさんとビシャル・キシュアさんにお越しいただきましたので、拠点開発の経緯も含めていろいろとお話を伺えたらと思います。それではよろしくお願いいたします。
Mr. Mayor, wonderful to meet you. My name is Buzz Palmer. I'm the CEO of the MedTech Actuator. We founded the MedTech Actuator in 2018, so this is our 6th year of operation. Great success, really exciting. And this is my co-founder and best friend, Dr. Vishal Kishore.
Mr. Mayor, wonderful to see you again and to spend some time together. Thank you. As Buzz says, I'm one of the two co-founders of the MedTech Actuator. I run strategy and a fair amount of our work in respect of internationalization and venture capital. It's wonderful to spend a little time together talking about this exciting area of the economy.
ありがとうございます。いや本当に嬉しいです。もう自己紹介いただきましたけども、早速その大阪で拠点を開発いただいたその思いといいますか、どうして大阪というのを選んでいた、僕らはもう本当に嬉しいんですけども、その理由を。
So for us, Mr. Mayor, Osaka is in the Goldilocks zone. So not too small. It is big enough that wonderful research is here, terrific capital and corporates, strong government. So not too small, but not so big that we cannot navigate and that it's hard to know what is going on. So it is the perfect size, the Goldilocks zone. Not too big, not too small, and beautifully connected. So it is, Osaka is connected to everywhere in Japan. It is easy to move from here to Kyoto, to Tokyo, to Hiroshima, to wherever. And so it's a beautiful hub and an excellent place to launch the work that we do and to launch the next wave of global MedTech startups from Japan.
But the thing is also, I mean, we've seen incredible capability here. Like the people are so warm. You walk into Osaka, everyone's so welcoming. They want to be part of the journey. They're really excited about the future. They can see the vision, they can see the value, they can see the opportunity, and everyone wants to be part of that. It's a really warm, welcoming feeling. We've never felt so welcome anywhere else in the world. And so for us, it's a natural home for the MedTech Actuator. It's a natural home for us.
Yes.
大阪は経済規模もあるし、今まで新技術スタートアップっていう面では大阪も、東京にも追いついてないし、これから力を入れていかないといけない時に、そのシード期やプレシード期というアーリー期の皆さんをしっかりサポートしながらベンチャーキャピタル投資家の皆さんにも来ていただかないといけないステージにあって、いろんな国際金融都市の政策をしている中でメドテックアクチュエーターのお二人が来ていただいたっていうのは、僕はこの大阪のスタートアップの流れの中で非常に大きな一つの転換期になるのではないかなというのを確信しています。
Mr. Mayor, I mean, Osaka is a phenomenal city. It's got incredible growth opportunity, great foundations when it comes to research and healthcare. What are some of the sort of strategies, what are some of the challenges, and what are some of the achievements that Osaka City has made over the years of being involved in healthcare?
大阪のスタートアップはですね、先ほどもちょっとお話はしたんですが、特に企業数、創出数やですね、資金調達っていうのは徐々に伸びてきていまして、 我々も相当力を入れたいと思ってる分野ですので、多くのスタートアップの方に活躍いただけるように資金調達もしっかりサポートしたいし、そういう思いで今どんどん増えてきているところです。そして今日会場にもお越しいただいているかもしれませんが、多くの民間企業の皆さんからその支援が増えている状況にもあります。一方で少し課題がありまして、スタートアップの皆さん本当にどんどん力をつけてこられてるんですが、いわゆるユニコーン企業といいますか、そこにちょっとまだユニコーン企業数というところでは他の都市に追いついていない状況にあります。スタートアップの皆さんのこの高さをいかに上げていくのかっていうのが今の大きな課題なのかなと思いますね。ぜひもうそのユニコーン企業も育てられたお二人何かアドバイスというかどういうことチャレンジをされてこられたのかっていうのもぜひ伺いたいな。
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. I mean, the first point is the foundation of the ecosystem. So the ability to have, so when we look at innovation and health innovation, we know it takes 40 skill sets to be able to do that, which means an ecosystem has to support that capability ideally if you want to keep the innovation in the city. So having connectivity to that is really important. Having good capital is important, but global capital is also really important as well, because you want to make sure that, you know, as a startup develops, it's really thinking about global markets and not just localized markets, and that's the unicorn thing. I think for me, a lot of it is about the mindset of the founders. You know, the founders being really bold, being really passionate, really thinking outside the box, challenging status quos, that they want to see something that is globally relevant, and they're making a product and a service that's for everybody in the world, not just for people that are local. And so I think part of it is really allowing the founders to be creative with their technologies, to think slightly differently, to explore new markets, but have the support of the ecosystem. No unicorn that we know of could have done it without their local ecosystem, without their local product development, without their local investor, without their local government, without their local university. They've all got to be part. They've all got to have the same vision, the same values. We've all got to drive the same adventure and this kind of this creative journey that's established when you're doing a unicorn, because it's a really hard game. And so I think that ecosystem support is important, but the founders really need to have this global mindset as well.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. As Buzz said, one of the things, Japan is such a powerful economy on its own right, with so many people and such a market internally. It can be very tempting to think that we should win Japan first and then go global. Part of what we encourage the startups that we work with is wherever you are, that is wonderful, stay there. But figure out the best market to attack first and second and third. It may be the market that you are born in, great, but it may not be. So maybe it's Indonesia, or maybe it's the United States, or maybe it's Spain, or maybe it's Australia. And so having this attitude of global from day one can make a big difference to growth pathways. And the second thing, Mr. Mayor, exactly as Buzz also says, our philosophy is a little bit different than many accelerators. So there are many accelerators, maybe they are from, let's say, the United States. They might come to Japan and they might start an accelerator program. They'll do a little bit of acceleration work. And then the very best companies, they'll take back to home base, to Silicon Valley, to Boston, wherever. Our attitude and philosophy is different. Our attitude is to build the local ecosystem, keep the company there, allow it to help other companies that are developing. So then we get this positive spiral upwards. So we love to build local ecosystems and then connect them to global markets, not take talent out and put it somewhere else. If we can do that here in Osaka as well, amazing results, we think, can be generated.
You've got to nurture, right? It's about nurturing your ecosystem, nurturing the talent that exists here, nurturing the companies, nurturing the players, and allow them to feel part of something, and actually picking some winners, proving the model can work, and developing some amazing companies.
So, Mr. Mayor, we have found, we travel around the region, we travel around the world, and we meet leaders from many governments, many agencies. We've just been thrilled by the foresight and the action focus of the political leaders in Osaka and in Japan. Mr. Mayor, are you able to tell us a little bit about some of the policies and interventions that Osaka will be making to support startups in the future?
ありがとうございます。これは大阪はスタートアップに力を入れていきたいと思っていて、で僕はメルボルンも伺いまして、その前はシカゴも伺って、でたまたま周年事業が多くてハンブルクとマンチェスターとロンドンも伺いました。いずれの都市もすごく若いメンバーがその新しいチャレンジを行う環境にあって、それを社会全体がサポートしているような環境にあるっていうのを日本と随分大きな違いを感じましたね。世界もどんどんすごい時代で速さで変わっていってるので、とにかくまずはそういう若い人たちが集まって話してチャレンジできるようなインキュベーションのいろいろ知恵が集まるようなステーションを大阪市内にもたくさん設けていきたいと思ってます。それもグラングリーンもそうですし、梅北エリアには大阪イノベーションハブ OIH っていう機関もあって、この OIH ではスタートアップの皆さんをしっかりフォローしていきたいと思いますし、そしてできたらエコシステムを生み出すためのベンチャーキャピタルの皆さんやその機関投資家の皆さんにもたくさん来ていただけるような税制やですね、いろんなサポートというのを作っていきたいと思っています。
Well, you always have friends at the MedTech Actuator ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with you.
最後にあれですかね、このイベントの締めをさせていただきたいと思います。じゃあ、よろしくお願いいたします。それでは、ハック大阪 Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you'll sit down nice and early. And
That's
I'm
right.
Sort of getting myself prepared and organised on the table. I've got my water bottle. Fantastic. I'm going to take a sip. Hopefully I don't keep coughing through our discussion. You're so far away from me, Nick.
I know. I'm just keeping my distance.
We usually sit a little closer together. Where's my clicker? Fantastic. So, where are my slides? I just want to... Great. So, great to be here with everyone. My name is Matt Frith. I'm the Chief Operating Officer from the MedTech Actuator. We're Asia Pacific's health venture catalyst, and we work in the area of assisting early stage startup companies to successfully commercialize their technology with a focus on health. So that's MedTech, biotech and health tech. And the reason companies like us exist, it's not uncommon to know of accelerators, and they're in many sectors, but they're incredibly important and valuable in health tech in particular. And that's because it's such a complicated sector to commercialize technology in. So in the last more than 6 years of the MedTech Actuator and 10 years of operation, we've supported over 200 companies who have raised significant amounts of capital and have great valuations out there doing some fantastic things in the world, including the company Synchron that Nick's a part of as well, and working with many great founders to support them on their journey. We don't do it alone, so we have an ecosystem of partners that support us, from hospitals and clinics to government providers. Some of our Japanese partners are JETRO and the Osaka Chamber of Commerce and Industry that have supported programs, companies like Ufino, organisations like Ufino, and METI and the Cabinet Office, who have all been great supporters and advocates of the innovative work that we do. And we're very thankful for the support, both within Japan, but our networks across the Asia Pacific where we work. Our offices are Australia in Melbourne in Australia, Singapore, and excitingly this year we opened our office in Osaka. Just a few more slides to round off our introduction, then we'll get into the main show of having a chat with Nick, and I'll be a lazy moderator and ask him to introduce himself in a moment and give myself a chance to take a breath. But we run 3 programs, so we support very early stage founders through our Origin program that in fact we've been running for the last 10 years. And we're part of the very early origin stories of Synchron. In fact, Tom was pitching up on stage back more than 10 years ago to win some money, I think, from us through MedTech's Got Talent, and we've also developed and run an accelerator program, and we run a global navigator program as well, which helps connecting people internationally into markets. We're also running separately, partnering with a venture capital company, Synthesis Capital. That was a strong theme, I think, of the video, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. But capital is such an important piece of the equation when it comes to successfully commercializing technologies. There's not enough of early risk capital, so we're doing our bit to try and find more and get more support for those founders that are brave enough to take on commercializing health technologies. You may have heard, but we had a very exciting year launching our accelerator program in Japan for the first time, so in collaboration with JETRO. So the JSTAR Health Tech Acceleration Program is currently running. In fact, we have our second sprint occurring in Osaka this week. So sprint 1 was last month, sprint 2 this week, and a few more sprints coming in the months ahead in Tokyo. And those companies will complete an intensive acceleration program with us over the next, up until the January, and then we'll take the final 10 through to June in a big demo day. We have a saying at MedTech Actuator that all superheroes have a beginning, and that all of the founders are in fact superheroes in our eyes. As I mentioned, commercializing technology is a difficult pursuit in any sector, but it's particularly difficult in health. And most people that are doing it are driven by two things: impact and benefit to humanity, and commercial and economic returns. So all superheroes have a big beginning, and it gives me great delight to welcome who I think is an amazing superhero. No pressure now, Nick, to introduce maybe Synchron, a quick introduction to Synchron, yourself, and if you want to talk about your current company and what you're working on now.
I will. So, thanks, Matt, and thanks for having me here. So I'm a biomedical engineer by trade. I'm a professor at the Department of Medicine, the University of Melbourne in Australia. I founded the company Synchron about 10 years ago, and about 3 months ago founded a new company, Ultra Bionics. You talk about superheroes. I mean, I grew up watching Astro Boy and Inspector Gadget, and I always wanted to make machines and body parts and cyborgs, and was fortunate enough to, through my university journey, learn some of the skills to understand how humans work and don't work, and understand how to put things together in machines. When I finished university, I started making a bionic eye, and that was an incredible piece of university technology that worked really well, but it didn't really go anywhere. And I think the problem was, and you hear this word ecosystem thrown around a lot, there wasn't an ecosystem to support this technology turn into a commercial product that can actually help the people it was designed for. At about the same stage that I realized that we'd made this incredible bionic eye, but it wasn't going to get anywhere, I started up this new company, Synchron, and that was when you got involved with the Actuator. I started this off with another gentleman who was a neurologist, so he knew the medicine, I knew the engineering, but we didn't know any of the business stuff. And it was only until sort of meeting you and going through that journey that we understood that there was a whole side of research and development that is really important if you're going to make it a product that can actually go out to the people that you're making it for. So we could do the engineering, we could do the medicine, but we needed to learn about IP, we needed to learn about finances and how to do budgets and how to get investment and all of these different things that they don't teach you at university, at least didn't teach me when I was there. And so our journey was an incredible one, and it really does go back to the start where forming a team and the ecosystem, in my opinion, it's just a bunch of people that you trust that have a whole lot of experiences that you need, even if you don't know you need them yet, that can help you and are willing to tell you and share their advice and share their stories and be a part of your journey and success, even if they're not actually part of the company. A whole lot of friends, a whole lot of mates that all work together to try and make something that eventually is going to help a whole lot of other people. And so the Synchron journey sort of started 10 years ago where we were developing a technology for the brain, a neural interface that could allow people with paralysis to control external equipment like computers or wheelchairs or phones. And the way that we were able to succeed is not only we had the university and the hospital, but we also had folks like Actuator and their colleagues and their network of people that were able to tell us, this is what you need to do to write a pitch deck to get investment. This is what you need to do to speak to IP lawyers to get protection around your equipment. And we've had a very successful journey, and I think we're continually coming back and asking questions and asking for support and being involved in the ecosystem. And it's a real pleasure to be here today and in Osaka and up on stage with you, Matt. And I think we've had a good time, and it's the start of the next journey, but while the other one is still going. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you guys might have on the journey, but I'm sure you'll get to them.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah. Well, actually, what I wanted to talk about to kick off with was that, through the video, and I've heard through other conversations that Japan and Osaka are really on this mission to drive the creation of more higher value companies like unicorns. And so what a great chance to reflect on the experience of you having gone through that journey, and what are those elements of success that either were there or should have been there to make that a little bit easier. And sort of three themes came out through for me listening to that video before. One was around the importance of ecosystem, and I know you started to talk a little bit around that. So we'll dig into that. But we'll come back around and talk about capital, because that comes up often, how to raise money, the importance of capital, and then the mindset of the founders. I'm interested to dig a little bit more into you talk about the technical skill and the business skill. So let's go through those 3 points and have a bit of a chat. But so you mentioned that ecosystem. So you sort of described it as individuals and some institutions, but how important is that ecosystem been in the development of a company like Synchron?
I think it's critical, and I think I've got direct, real lived experience of this, where I developed a technology, the bionic eye, that didn't have this ecosystem and hasn't gone anywhere. And then I developed this brain-machine interface. The engineering and the surgery, it's sort of similar. But the difference was in the second case, there was this ecosystem of other people around helping us along the journey. And that has now become a company that's been able to go from human trials in Australia, human trials in the US. We're starting a big pivotal trial over there to get commercial approval. We're already looking at different markets around the globe on where we can start releasing the product. And so that one has, in my mind, a real possibility of making a product that's going to help a lot of people. Whereas unfortunately the first one has still a long way to go on that journey, and it's not going to get there without the support of people that aren't necessarily in the company doing the day-to-day work. And that's what I think of as the ecosystem. All the other components involved, the funders, the government bodies, the regulatory folks.
Well, Buzz spoke about something like, and we've mapped out 40 different specialist type skill sets that are needed in a MedTech device, from regulatory expertise, reimbursement, engineering, product, QMS, manufacturing. And as I mentioned before, it is people are brave, are crazy, are slightly crazy with taking on this ambitious pursuit of doing MedTech, because you need so many different partners to come together. So who else, you mentioned there might be more, but who else in that mix of people do you think are important, or you've had to rely on? How about the university and the other institutes as well?
For us at universities and hospitals and research institutes were critical, certainly in the early days when we were proving out our technology, showing that it that is safe, showing that it's functional, asking all of the fundamental scientific questions. We needed these universities. We needed the lab space and access to equipment and access to facilities. Once you get beyond that stage, you then need access to manufacturers that can make medical devices in clean rooms that are suitable for human implantation. A lot of the devices I made by hand, there's no way you'd implant them in someone. You need to go to like a specialised facility with people that know what they're doing and have quality control.
I trust you to implant it, Nick. Anytime.
I might think
around with the device, like Astro Boy style.
I might. And so there's just so many parts to it. And I think Synchron probably has 40 to 50 different advisors, and we have different advisors who are specific to one particular part of it. So they might be electromagnetic radiation. They're the specialist on that. We'll get them in, and they don't have to build the product, they don't have to implant it, but we need their knowledge on this little piece so that we can put the whole jigsaw puzzle together. And I think there's a lot of different people that are needed, and you can't do it yourself as a founder or even as a founding team. You need others to be involved, and so having a community that helps you get there is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and you mentioned, we're talking a little bit around reflecting on the Melbourne ecosystem as well. So, I don't know, is there things, I'm interested to know, have you seen it develop over the last 10 years? How was it when you were starting out? Has it gotten better? Or has it always been quite a good ecosystem to support what you're doing? Or have we been building that in the last 10 years?
I think Melbourne has always been great at coming up with ideas, doing some academic research to prove that they're right, having linkages with researchers and hospitals to prove the device functions. What Melbourne is getting a lot better at through different ecosystems is, how do you get funding at the start? Like, that was a huge issue when Synchron were going through the early days. Trying to get early stage seed funding and VC funding was pretty much impossible. And this is only 10 years ago. It's changed a lot. And I think the reason it's changed is because because the ecosystem has grown, because there's more people involved in doing it, then more people come in and want to support it. And a lot of the funding comes from government, and they're now supporting different, call it VC groups or different investors to start putting their money into these early stage companies. And that was needed a long time ago. That's getting a lot better. We're not great at manufacturing as Australians. Perhaps once upon a time, but certainly a lot of the things we need to build that are suitable for human implantation needs to be done overseas. Is that going to come back to Australia? Maybe, maybe not. But that's certainly something that really forces a lot of the MedTech development to look abroad and to look at places like Japan and Europe and the States to say, okay, well, who can make this little piece the best it can be? How can Australia be the guys that assemble it and use it? But we don't have those capabilities, and so I don't know if that's going to change, but I think it's great that there are other countries around, particularly this one, who makes a lot of these components that are really critical in medical devices.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll, in a sec, dig into more around that capital element as well, because that's quite an important area that needs to be focused on and supported. Just one final point on that ecosystem. Synchron has both origins and roots in Melbourne, and of course presence in the United States for market access there and doing other things and capital raising. So I'm just trying to get a sense for that balance of ecosystem between leveraging what you had at the start and then moving at some point when you need to as well. So how's that worked for Synchron, and how's that been balanced with getting the best out of Australia and some of those early funding schemes, but then also leveraging the benefits of being in the States?
And I think it's different for everyone, and for us certainly, the condition that we were looking at, paralysis, the way that's treated and motor neuron disease specifically, the way that's treated in Australia is quite different to other countries. And in the US, for example, they have a lot more people with motor neuron disease. They keep them alive for longer. They've also got a bigger population. And so when you look at where the biggest market is, for us, it's not how many devices can we sell, but it's how many people can we help. We can help a bunch of people in Australia, for sure, but there's even more people that we can help, and people who are more paralysed and more in need of this sort of technology in other places, such as the US. And so we went over there, and because there was such a big need, the funding sort of follows it. If there's a big problem, then there are people that are going to be willing to pay to support cures or fixes or solutions. And so for us, moving over to the US this is how we can get our product to help more people who are in more need of help faster than perhaps we could in Australia. Europe was another place we looked at the time. That was probably about the same as Australia in terms of how much benefit we thought the technology could provide, but we thought that it could provide a lot in the US, and that's one of the reasons we moved over there. But I do encourage everyone to, like was mentioned on the video, you don't have to stay at home. Start at home and you can live at home and you can live wherever that is. But think about where your product is going to have the most value and the fastest value. Is it is it in a country in Europe because they have the hospitals that you need, or is it in Indonesia because they have more of the medical condition that you're trying to treat? Like, be open to where you should go, because that's how you'll get there faster, and likely that if there's a bigger need in those places, there'll be more money to support what you're trying to do. But that doesn't mean you can't do it at home, but I'd just be open to the world being one big home that we can all live in.
Yeah. Fantastic, thanks. And then I think it leads nicely into this question around capital raising. And so we heard the mayor of Osaka talking about a strong intent to attract more venture capital into Osaka. Now, from our point of view, of course, that's critical to have the capital. And you've mentioned resources and money where you are. You need that as well. You need to be able to attract it. You need the right type of capital. You need smart people, and you need health tech is a different type of investor usually as well, understanding how that works, and because typically it's more technical, more engineering heavy, and more scientific. It comes with an area of often a need to understand more deeply before people will invest money. So there's some challenges and barriers to health tech investing. But reflecting, I guess, on the journey of the early days of Synchron and raising that capital, you hinted at it before that it was quite a troubling period. It's not an uncommon story, and we live that journey with many, many founders, in fact with hundreds of them. We tackle it from two ends, the supply and the demand side. So I guess our job is to prepare people with the supply, so making sure that the startups that we're sending out there to investors are as well prepared as they can be. They've got their strategies in place, they've validated as much as they can, they're putting good commercial case studies and business cases forward, and they're presenting it in the right way to give them the best chance of success. However, it's very challenging for those companies if you send them into a market where there's very limited capital. So we're trying to hit the other side as well and raise more capital and get more money. But from the experience of Synchron and reflecting back that fundraising journey, I wonder if you wouldn't mind just sharing a few reflections on what that was like and what challenges you hit, or maybe even some optimism if you had any things that helped get you through that phase.
I'll give you two. I've been doing the fundraising journey recently, so I can tell you what it was like 10 years ago and then fast track to what it's been like, and they are quite different. So 10 years ago when we were trying to raise funds, we were told three things. Firstly, we were told you don't have any business experience on your team. That was absolutely true. There was sort of engineering and medicine. We didn't have anyone who'd ever run a company or even been involved in a company. We didn't have that knowledge and experience. So that was something we could achieve. We were told that we didn't have any human data. That was very difficult to achieve because we needed the money to try and get there, but we were successful in getting sort of local government grants to be able to support us to do that first trial. And then the third thing we were told by investors was the return on investment is more than 5 years. We can't fix that. If you're making a medical product, it's going to be more than 5 years. It's going to be closer to 20, 15, you'll be lucky, 10, you're doing really well. So MedTech just takes a long time. The reason it takes a long time is largely because you're implanting things in humans, and before you're allowed to sell a product, you have to make sure that it's been in a person for a couple of years to make sure that there's nothing that goes wrong over that time frame. And so for us, our human implants, we've implanted 10 people now, and they've all gone extremely well, which is fantastic. There haven't been any medical-related clinical adverse events, they're called. But we still had to put it in, even though we knew it was safe after a couple of months, we had to leave it in for a few years before we could get that data point that was needed to support the next stage on the journey. So for investors at that time saying, you need to have a return on investment in 5 years, it was crazy. That was never going to happen in Australia or to any medtech company. Now, so I think there's certainly some things you can do. Getting business experience is one thing that a team should try and do, whether it's learning knowledge for yourself or bringing someone onto the team that has that experience. I think that's critical, and that was certainly a very good piece of advice that we're able to do. But if we fast forward 10 years to the fundraising that has been happening more recently, there's no requirement for a return on investment in 5 to 10 years in Australia. It seems that the investors are now aware that it takes a long time. It's high risk, but it's high reward. And if you put in a little bit of money now, then the company could grow to be quite successful. But it's still going to take a long time. And I think maybe it's just a product of having more money in Australia to support it. But certainly that's one thing that's changed. What the pitch decks look like, they're pretty much the same, right? You want to show what your team is, why it matters, like why you're the team that's going to be able to achieve this groundbreaking new development, and I think the why it matters piece is really important. A lot of investors these days aren't doing it to make quick cash. Certainly in the MedTech sphere, they're not doing it to make money fast. There are heaps of ways you can gamble your money away and get faster returns, but if you're doing the MedTech things, it's generally because people want to make a difference and they want to cure or find solutions to different diseases, and so having a strong mission on why you're going to be able to help people, what your plan is to help the largest number of people, depending on where you live and where you want to go. And I think finding the right investor that wants to join you on that journey is becoming a lot easier, because they're there for the right reasons now. They're there because they want to see someone be helped with Alzheimer's, or child's being born in a safer way, or whatever it might be. There are different groups that have their own knowledge and biases around these medical solutions, and they want to help. And I think that's one thing that's certainly changed over the last decade or so.
Yeah, fantastic. Is there any particular advice that you would have? I mean, you spoke through most of it then, I think, but looking at Osaka and Japan, if you could talk to the VCs and say, be kind to the founders, or you could give advice to the founders, which you gave a bit of then, around how to better approach VCs. Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd share?
I think for the VCs, I'll start there. I think they need to be aware that the MedTech is a long play. It does take a long time. You're going to need lots of money, and that means that can be good for them. That means they can continue to share in the journey over a large number of years and have a really big reward at the end when it all comes to fruition. So I think having a more open mindset of not looking at it for the dollars, but looking at it for what benefit it can provide. The dollars will come, right? If you've made something that's great, they'll follow. But you just need to make something that that you believe in, and trust in the team that's going to be able to help them, and then just help them however you can. And founders don't know what they don't know, right? But VCs might have been able to see things that from other companies. So if you think your company doesn't that you want to invest in doesn't have a strong IP position, tell them that. Help them out and say, we think that you might need to focus on this more. And the founders will probably go, oh yeah, we hadn't even thought about that. Let's figure out how to do that. Or and I think there's a lot of ways that the VCs can and investors can help the founders bridge the knowledge they don't have by being experienced in that in their own way. But certainly patience is one thing that the VCs need.
Yeah.
And from the founders, I think once you've got to find the right VC firstly, but once you've got them, they're part of your team. And use them where you can. And if you don't know if you're on the right path, or if you don't know which manufacturer, or if you've got a choice of two, ask them. Like, they might have done that before. And I think it took us a while to realize that once the VCs we had were part of the team, they were part of the team. You can tell them all the good things, but you can also tell them the bad things, and they'll be able to help you fix them. And I think there's, founders don't like to discuss the problems that they're having, but I think that's really important because you need a lot of people to come up with good solutions, and some of the VCs and investors as part of your team could be those that are going to be able to help you. So I'd be open about that as well.
Good advice. Yeah, sharing more openly the stuff and getting support in all the different aspects you need to grow forward. All right, so that's capital. For the last little bit, I just wanted to circle back on what is arguably one of the most important, if not foundational, elements of success, and that's the founders, the founder mindset, the founder skill set. It was mentioned, of course, in the video as well, around a global mindset, so thinking globally and not being restricted just to locally. And I guess that's a particularly important theme for Japan as they start to look to connect more globally throughout the world and take their amazing technology capabilities and turn them into solutions that benefit all of us. The resilience, the tenacity, the drive that's needed to be a founder. So I want to embarrass you a little bit and get you to reflect on some of this. So you've got your education experience started with a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering,
yeah.
PhD in Electrical Engineering, and an MBA in there somewhere.
Yep.
When did the MBA come in? Was that later in the piece? Or
That was later.
did you think that would be your business experience?
Yeah, sort of. I went to a lot of VC meetings and I'm like, I remember I was sitting there going, oh, we've got this device that's going to cure all these people. And they're like, how much money will it make me? And I'm like, well, maybe they didn't understand the question. And I'm like, I'm going to help all these people. And they're like, yeah, but how much money am I going to make? And I'm like, maybe I need to do an MBA to learn the different languages between the business folks and the industry folks. So yeah, I love learning. I'm doing a Masters of Law at the moment just because I really enjoy
I didn't know that
learning
one.
new
Need to
things.
add that to my list.
Yeah, health and medical law to understand neuroethics and why devices should be made with greater community benefit and how we can make products that achieve that. But I've always loved learning. I think that's one of the things.
But you've got it's a very technical education pathway, right?
Yep.
Science, engineering,
Yep.
PhD. Where did the entrepreneurial spark come from? Was that in you? Was that something that emerged at a point in your life, or were you on this journey destined to be a scientist or an engineer in a lab?
I think it was just a side effect of wanting to make technology that actually makes a difference, and learning from the previous experience on the bionic eye that yes, you can make amazing technology and work with incredible people, but if you don't have a plan on how to get it through sort of the regulatory commercial red tape and loopholes, then it's not going to be a product and people aren't going to be able to use it. And so I think doing the commercial side of things is really just a means to an end. It's like it's still just a continuation of the journey of now I know how to make things, now I know how to sort of implant them. How do I actually sell them? How can I go the next journey and get it into the shelves so that doctors can have that as a piece of kit that they can use to treat people. That's sort of where I see the commercial thing, particularly for MedTech, coming in, and sort of why I wanted to learn some skills around what's marketing like. Why is that useful? How can that benefit the mission I'm on to try and help these people? And I think certainly a lot of the people we've got in our team have had that mindset. They might have come from non-scientific, non-engineering disciplines, but they know about how to get different products out, and I think that it's important to include a lot of different mindsets and a lot of different skills. Yeah.
And did you, you're straddling sort of different career paths as well, I guess, this sort of inventor and co-founder of a company working on an amazing technology and doing great things in its progress, as well as an academic type career. Is there any sort of pushback or difficulty in balancing being an entrepreneur and being that academic? Has it been stressful? Has there been times where it's been a challenging ride as a founder, as an entrepreneur, or you found it pretty good?
There are always going to be challenges, and I think I made a lot of mistakes the first time that I'm not going to make this time, and I'm learning as we go. There is a time where it gets very difficult to do academic research at the same time as industry, particularly around the academic institutes wanting to do publications. And when you get to a stage when you're doing FDA trials, you might get a piece of wire and bend it 1 million or 10 million times. You can't publish that. But it's absolutely critical that you do that piece of work, and it costs a lot of money and it costs a lot of time. And so it's difficult to justify that from an academic side, but from an industry side, of course, you'll do that fatigue testing. And so I think when I was going through that journey, it seemed to me that they were very different paths I had to go on, but I think I'm now realizing that it's the same path. It's just how you can make sure to manage the expectations of these different parties and let them all know. And it's about communication, right? How can you tell them that this might not get a paper, but it is absolutely critical to getting the paper from the clinical trial or so forth. So I think
what's in it for them, like driving forward
I think that's
a value proposition to someone.
And I think that's what people, what just made me think of.
She's an engineer talking about value proposition. It's scaring me.
I mean, all founders should do this. I mean, if you are writing your pitch deck, please make sure that on the first or second page, you make it really clear why whoever's reading it should care. Because if you don't do that, they're not going to go to the second and third pages, right? And it's often overlooked. You'll list all of the different things about why your technology is awesome and amazing, but if you don't get the person who's reading it to care, then they're not going to keep reading and they're probably not going to invest in you. And I think that goes across everything, but I've certainly, that's one of the things that the pitch decks have now. Even if I'm making technology for a disease that person doesn't have, how can I make them care about the disease enough to try and fund it for other people that have it? That's not easy. It's always a work in progress, but I certainly suggest that any founders out there just think about how, step back. Like, we know you care about it, but step back. How can you get other people to care about what you do? And I think that's pretty important.
Amazing, thanks. Well, the clock is ticking right down into our final couple of minutes, and I've got a few messages to leave with at the end. But maybe just wrapping a few of our key points. Nick, so it's good to hear you reflect. I guess we spoke about that ecosystem and the importance of having different institutions, different individuals, you even mentioned, coming together. I know, in fact, it's true, right? There's some of the people that you met way back earlier in some of our programs you're working with them today as individuals as well. So it's great to see that ecosystem maturing. We spoke about the importance of capital and how there's two sides to that, both the VCs and the ability of them to be more understanding of the time horizons for investing in health tech, but also how entrepreneurs can prepare themselves better for investing. And then, of course, the mindset of a founder and the importance of thinking globally and having some strength and resilience to push through. So thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to just give a couple of wrap-up messages on MedTech Actuator, and then we'll finish up. One thing I just wanted to let everyone know about before we finished, we have a program open at the moment called Global Navigator. This is for any startups that are in the Hiroshima region and area, and we have applications currently open and closing on the 2nd of December. So if you know someone that might be interested or you are in that demographic, then please apply. This is helping growth stage companies to internationalize, so looking at taking your first step internationally and using Australia as a stepping stone to the rest of the world. So we run mentoring sessions in January and February in Hiroshima. In March, you'll come on an immersion to Australia to connect into the Melbourne ecosystem. And as I mentioned, applications close on the 4th of December. And then finally, if you want to stay connected with the MedTech Actuator, we have a huge range of activities coming up connected to Expo over 2025. We'll have our big demo day for the accelerator. We'll have many different programs and activities we're planning out and announcing in the coming months for 2025. So the best way for you to stay across all of that information or to get in touch with us to ask questions is to connect via line, and we'll announce everything there. But otherwise, thanks so much, Nick. It was a real pleasure getting to chat with you on the stage. Thank you so much for sharing the story of Synchron, your insights personally as well. And I think we were going to hang around. MedTech Actuator's got a booth out there, so if anyone, we didn't have time for Q&A in the session, but if you wanted to come and ask a question of Nick or myself or any of the MedTech Actuator team, some of them are sitting down the front, we'll be over in our booth. So please come and say hello and ask any questions you'd like to ask us. But otherwise, I think we're done.
Thank you.
Cheers.